Hello and welcome to Fantasy Football by Ben. Today is my bold prediction, Tuesday, and so I'll be recapping my bold predictions from week 12 and seeing how I did, and then I'll be doing my bold predictions for week 13. Alright, let's get started. So for week 12, my first bold prediction was the quarterback prediction, and I said Teddy Bridgewater would be a top 5 quarterback. Top 5 quarterback was not in Teddy Bridgewater's outcome. He had a pretty bad game. They had 2 defensive touchdowns. The rookie scored 2 back-to-back touchdowns in back-to-back plays, and so they didn't really touch the ball a whole lot. And when they did, Teddy Bridgewater didn't do too well, so he only threw 1 touchdown, but, he wasn't a top 5 scoring QB last week. My second bold prediction was that Todd Gurley would average over 5 yards per carry and have 2 rushing touchdowns. Todd Gurley didn't play, and so that one did not come true. The running backs that filled in for him didn't do very well either, so I don't know if my prediction would have came true anyways, but we'll see. Maybe in the future, Todd Gurley will average over 5 yards per carry and have 2 touchdowns again. That'd be great. A wide receiver prediction was that Justin Jefferson would finish as the top scoring wide receiver in the NFL. He did not do that. There was some random guy named Tyreek Hill that took that spot. He had somewhere around 200 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns in the first quarter. So, just right away, he automatically just took that spot from Justin Jefferson right after the end of the first quarter. And even actually before that, after he caught a second touchdown. But Jefferson did have a great game. He had 7 for 70 and 2 touchdowns. So, he was a top 10 wide receiver, and top 5 actually, in scoring. So, it wasn't a bad bold prediction by any means. And that's without any of the games being played yet, because they obviously, the Steelers-Ravens game hasn't been played yet, so that he could move down further from 5, but right now he's the top 5 wide receiver this week. For my tight end prediction for week 12, I had predicted that Hunter Henry would finish as a top 3 tight end, and he did not. He finished in the top 12, which is a tight end 1, but he did not score a touchdown, which pretty much hurt him, because he had a pretty good receiving day. He just didn't score a touchdown, which hurt him. But, if you played Hunter Henry, he was solid, so, I wouldn't be upset about it if I were you. But he didn't finish as a top 3 tight end, so that prediction did not come true. For my defensive prediction, which was my 5th prediction, I picked the Saints to finish with 10 plus points for 4 straight weeks, and they did. Yes, they did go against the Broncos, who did not really have a true quarterback playing in that game. And they only attempted 9 passes the whole game, and the guy threw 2 picks. So, obviously it counts, but realistically, that was kind of a lucky bold prediction on my part, because the Saints defense probably could have, but had that many interceptions, but I feel like with Drew Lock, they would have had a lot more total yards than what they did. So, that prediction was pretty lucky. Alright, so let's get started with the predictions that I'm going to be making for week 13. Alright, so obviously I'm going to start off with the quarterback. And this week for my quarterback pick, I've decided to go with a guy who had an okay game. He ran for a touchdown. He threw for 1. The one that he threw for was a 69-yard touchdown to A.J. Brown. You guessed it, it's Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill, last week, really just they had Derrick Henry, and they just relied on Derrick Henry, which they pretty much do every week. And why wouldn't they? He's a beast. Derrick Henry has just been on par this year. He's leading the league in rushing yards. He's second in rushing touchdowns. Derrick Henry is definitely a workhorse. But they're going against the Browns next week, and I'm expecting Myles Garrett to be back. And I do think that he will affect Derrick Henry's run game. I'm not saying that Derrick Henry won't get 20 carries again or more, but I do think that going up against the Browns, who have a very good offense right now, and they've been running the ball really well, and the Tennessee Titans are not very good against the run, I do think that this is going to be a really big game for Ryan Tannehill. I think it's going to be a pretty high-scoring game. I expect it to be a really high-scoring game. And I do think that Ryan Tannehill will finish as a top 5 QB in Week 13. All right, so now for my running back prediction, I have Josh Jacobs, who is coming off of his worst fantasy game this season. And he had 7 carries for 27 yards, 3 for 17, and a fumble. 3 catches for 17 yards and a fumble. This week they're going up against the Jets, who are 7th worst against the run. And I think he'll finish as a top 12 or top back in fantasy, not top 12. Well, he is top 12 if he's finishing as a top back. But I think he'll finish as a top back in fantasy. I think this would be a really big bounce back game for Josh Jacobs. And if he's fully healthy, I expect a really big game out of Josh Jacobs this week. For our wide receiver prediction, this week I'm going to be going with Cooper Kupp. He's coming off of 2 catches for 41 yards. They had a close game and he only had 5 targets. I mean, their next opponent is a way worse pass defense than what they just faced against San Francisco. And I do think that this could be a really high-scoring game. And it'll be a really high-scoring offensive game because, I mean, the Rams' defense is really good, but I think the Cardinals' offense is also very good. And so I do think that the Cardinals could move the ball a lot on the Rams. And that'll make sure that the Rams will have to at least throw the ball a little bit. And, I mean, the Cardinals are a pretty solid run defense. They're not great, not bad. But I do think that how the Rams offense is it's very pass-heavy offense. And especially when they're in close games, and I do think this could be a really close game. And so I expect Cooper Kupp to get back to his normal self and getting 10-plus targets, which he had the last 3 weeks before this game. So my bold prediction is that he'll be a top 10 wide receiver this week in fantasy. For my tight end position, I'm never very good. It's been pretty tough for me to predict this year, but this week I've made a decision on a player because of he had a bad game last week, and I do think that he could have a really good bounce back week this week, and that's Jordan Reed. Jordan Reed last week went against the Rams, and who I just talked about. And yes, the 49ers moved the ball quite a bit, but Jordan Reed only had 2 catches for 18 yards, and it's not a big week or anything, so obviously, one with George Kittle being out and stuff, I do think that they're going to look to Jordan Reed more often. I mean, obviously, this is his 3rd game since George Kittle's been out because they had a bye week last week, and then they had 2 weeks before that where George Kittle's out. But other than that, Jordan Reed really hasn't played a whole lot of games with this offense. And so I do think that him being back and being fully healthy will be a big, good thing this week for that offense. And I think that Jordan Reed could have a big week this week. He's going up against the Bills, who are the 2nd worst against tight ends. And, I mean, we saw Hunter Henry have 7 for 67 against them last week. And, I mean, I think my bold prediction is that Jordan Reed will finish as a top 5 tight end in Week 13. For my defensive pick in Week 13, I'm going with the Colts. The Colts just gave up 45 points and didn't get a single takeaway against the Titans last week and had -5 fantasy points. This week they're going up against the Houston Texans, who are red hot, but they just lost Will Fuller, and so I do think that's really going to hurt the Texans' offense. They haven't been really able to get running plays, and Fuller has been their big play guy this year, and so I think that if the Colts get Forrest Buckner back with Will Fuller out, and also the rushing game has not been very good, I do think that Deshaun Watson this week is going to struggle against the Colts defense, and I have the Colts finishing as the top scoring defense in fantasy this week, Week 13. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe if you're new. I'll see you in the next video. Tomorrow, I'll be doing my quarterback and running back rankings. Stay tuned. Peace.